Shalom, 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 shalom. Man, just wanted to give you guys a silver update because man, silver prices are taking off, and for some, it is now or never. You know, man, been getting pretty good feedback from the last live that I did. A lot of engagement, a lot of comments, a lot of interaction, and a lot of men are dropping some great comments, some great wisdom, some great nuggets, some great advice. And, you know, man, January 2026 might be the last time that we see silver below $100. You know, when you think back 10 years ago, and if you can do the research, you look at silver prices then, 10 years ago, that was one of those moments. And like I continue to say, man, you don't want to be one of those men that sounds like a broken record by saying, man, I wish I would have got in back when it was this price. Hey, shalom, brother. Shalom. We got Ranger 1453 in here. Shalom and blessings, brother. Hope all is well with you and your household. But like I said, man, we all know somebody that chose not to get in, and their mindset was elsewhere, their focus was elsewhere, and they were saying, man, if I only would have got in when silver was $20, 25, an ounce. Man, right now, man, I'm sitting here looking at silver, and it is 86.10 and climbing. 86.10 and climbing. Spot price. By the time, let's look at this. I'm gonna look on. I got a couple websites up. I got SD Bullion up. I got JM Bullion. I've got AppMax up, and AppMax is behind. It's saying $86. JM is saying 86.02, and it seems like SD Bullion has the most accurate every time I refresh, and it's at 86.10. Now, what a lot of men need to understand is the going price is not what you're gonna pay. So you may be listening to this and saying, man, that thing is not near $100. Well, let me show you. Let me give you the actual. So if we go to silver and we go to silver rounds, that is what outside of large bars, silver rounds are going to give you your lowest point of entry, according to my opinion, rather than like constitutional, rounds. But we go to silver rounds. Let me pull this up and let me see what the going rate is. So you can get some that have been in circulation, and look at this. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate Ranger said, did you read those articles via email? Says, I'm kicking my feet back, eating popcorn and watching these fools lose their mind. Metaphorically, of course. I'm with you. So 1 ounce silver rounds right now, checker wire, you're going to pay $92.54. So you're saying, man, what is the difference between the spot price and what they're asking for? Checker wire, that's about a $6 increase, their profit margins, okay? Bitcoin, you can get it for $93.47. But for, the average person, first-time buyer that says, I'm going to use a card, debit card, PayPal, man, your entry point is $96.40 for 1 ounce of silver. Man, we're less than $4 away from this thing hitting $100 an ounce. Now, if you get in and you buy, 20 or more, then you can get it for $95.85. But let's say, man, what I constantly see is, man, you have people that have been investing in silver for 10 years in the game, 20 years, 30 years in the game. You look at Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I always mess up his name, but he's constantly advocating the same thing. Get in. Because the price, yesterday's prices are not today's prices. Now, this thing has taken a dip over the last couple days, but that dip isn't as significant as the increase has been. So, if you're watching this thing on a daily basis and you saw it take a dip, that was an opportunity to save yourself, a couple dollars on the ounce, on the, the total price to your door. Another thing is when you're buying the silver from these websites, unless you're trying to offload this or you've got some reason why, use the free shipping option, because all of that is factored into your cost. Say, for instance, you want to buy some silver and you want to overnight it for $60. Well, you're not going to, you think about that being factored into your shipping, to your overall price. And, now you're taking a loss when you can just let it, on average, what I've noticed, anytime I've ordered from SD Bullion, it takes about 10 to 12 days snail mail. Never had one problem with the silver arriving or anything like that. So when I gave you the price point of the rounds, that is why I said, man, this thing is gonna hit. I think, before the end of January, we're gonna see that thing creep over 100. It may be for a day, 2 days, a couple days, but I think this time next year, with what China's doing, what industry is doing, we're looking at well over $100. So you being able to get in on silver at this price point is going to be a thing of the past, because it's in so demand. Let me see what we got. A popular question I've been asking channel creators recently: can you explain for everyone the difference between? Oh man, okay. So I am not, when you talking about derivatives, I don't speak on things that I don't know, but I do know the difference between money and currency. So in Hebrew, we have kasef for money. That is, when you think about the Most High's source of money, we have precious metals. When you look at, when you look at, I don't do flashing money or anything like that on social media, but when you look at paper money, man, that is currency. And we have been lied to in school about, what money is. Hey, Shalom, we got H set apart. We have been completely lied to what money is. So when you think about going to the bank and you're pulling out some cash, people assume, and they're like, man, I'm going to the bank, I got to withdraw some money. What you are drawing out is currency. And we're gonna get concrete. I like to get concrete. So let's look at this. We're gonna okay. So when you think about currency, man, it is a system of denominations in general use in a particular country. So say, for instance, in America, we've got an eagle on a paper and we say, this is our currency. Man, if I were to take that to another country, if I were to take that to Europe, I were to take that to Africa, I would take that to Asia, they're going to look at that like, what the heck is this? That's not acceptable here. This is why when you're traveling internationally, you have to, if you've got any of that foreign currency, man, you got to go to a currency exchange booth or station for the going rate, because the currency rates are fluctuating. The values are fluctuating. When you think about money, limited resource, okay, not a unlimited resource to where they can just go, long as they got trees, they can print off more currency. Man, what you want as a hedge against inflation is you want money. Tangible money. Gold, silver. Right now we've got people even investing in copper. You got people buying the platinum, the palladium, all the different stuff. But I would tell you something, man, if you were to take 1 ounce of gold and you were stranded somewhere, anywhere in the world, you could get home with just that one coin. You could get home. Sure enough, you could get home. You do that, say for instance, you got a briefcase with money, and let's just say we're in a situation where the dollar is, year after year, the dollar is losing value. I don't know if people understand that, but I saw the decline when I was stationed in Europe, and it hasn't gained the value back. It's slowly declining. And you get somewhere stranded and you've got this currency. In some situations, man, you've got toilet paper. You might as well pop a squat and wipe your butt with it, because it's about as useless as that at that point. But that money, man, that's accepted around the world. There ain't nobody that, even when you go on a business and, they're doing a large amount of business and they say, we accept credit, debit, all of these different forms. The one you never see is actual money, but it is a form of payment. It may make the process a little bit more lengthy, but it is a form of payment. And you can oftentimes, you can get a better value on purchasing things than you will with fiat currency, with the paper money. Let's see. Do you think copper would be the next big thing? I don't know. I think copper has been pretty steady. When you look at like in the United States, man, you got a lot of crackheads that, man, take off catalytic converters for those precious metals out of there. I think it's going to be pretty steady, but I'd have to look into it and see what it's trending. Okay. Fractional AG or copper. I think copper was money in ancient China. Okay. So we're getting a different perspective. And like I said, man, if you are diving in this for the first time, any man tuning in, man, do your research. Man, on my last live, something that I wanted to point out was be careful buying precious metals on social media. Be careful. You got people on there scamming the heck out of folk on Facebook with silver below spot prices. We talked about your buying point when you go on these websites is above spot so they can make their profit. We got people on social media selling silver, quote unquote, probably not silver. If anything, it's plated, $10 below spot and selling 10, 5, 20,000. What I want you to realize is right now, man, this is a scammer's dream, because they'll get online and they'll buy some replica silver, for dirt cheap, and then turn around and flip it for buku dollars to a fool. All they got to do is just post it and let some fool come along and think he's getting a good deal, taken advantage of. So I would not recommend it, because at least when you're dealing with a major corporation that's been in business doing this, that's the difference between, you actually getting your silver and messaging a guy that wants you to send him 3 gift cards from Lowe's, or, 3 prepaid credit cards, and, he's sending you some fictitious tracking number for your silver, and this stuff don't never come. UPS, Postal Service, FedEx tells you, whoa, this tracking number ain't a valid number, and you didn't wire this money, sent your money across, paid on PayPal. A lot of people are out here getting got, so definitely be cautious of that. I wanted to mention that last time, but it slipped my mind. Yeah, man, I think if you don't get in, now, I don't think you're gonna, because this thing took such a run, and the demand is so high. The demand just didn't become high out of nowhere. Like Ranger said, man, there's a frenzy around it right now, and that's what it is. There's a frenzy around it. You have people that have been saving and stacking silver for a while. They're holding on, increasing their stack. And then you have right now, a whole bunch of first-time people creating that frenzy because they think it's the next best get rich quick thing. But this is a long game type thing because, with the analysis, we see daily dips, increases are outperforming the dips. And man, when you look at this, I'm always looking at 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I'm looking at it in those aspects. I'm not looking for this to, I get it today and then tomorrow, man, I'm a millionaire. Woo, I made it. No, it ain't one of them things. But for the sake of parking the resources that I have worked for in a place where generationally I can hand them over and they say, man, boy, granddaddy or grandfather, grandpa, my dad left me this. That's not something that I grew up with. That's not something that I've experienced from my elders, and I'm trying to do it. This is a great way to do it. So we got, let's see, we got Ranger in the comments that asked a question. He said, can you explain to everyone the Cantillon effect? So let's get on here. Let's see what this is. And I'm learning first time myself. But this is what it says on brief. You let me know if I'm spot on or need to dive a little deeper. It says the Cantillon effect describes how new money entering the economy does not affect everyone equally. Okay. Instead, it flows to specific groups first, like banks, financial firms, and asset holders, allowing them to buy before prices fully rise, thus increasing their wealth, while ordinary citizens receive their money later, finding prices already inflated, which reduces their purchasing power and widens wealth gap. I believe that. Imagine, I believe that 100%, because if somebody has a $4, $5 advantage and they're buying in the thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of a product, man, they've got a booming business if they were to turn around and flip it to the consumer that's got to pay $4 or more for it. It's an advantage. Based upon what I'm seeing, Ranger, this looks like certain groups are given an advantage. Let's see how it works. First receivers benefit. Those closest to the central bank or government, such as financial institutions, get new money first. They can invest it in stocks, real estate, or other assets at current prices. Okay, price inflation. As the money spreads, prices for goods, services, and assets eventually rise. Last receiver loses. By the time wages and stimulus checks reach the average worker, they can buy less with the same amount of money because prices have already gone up. See, I think this is a conversation that I was talking to a brother back when the government was giving out these stimulus checks. I said, man, if everybody would have took this stimulus check and held for 30 days, we don't get to see what that looks like if we would hold. They're banking on, by the time you get that money, you sending it right back into the system. You got to think, man, when we were getting these checks, man, the malls, I think we were visiting in Augusta, South Carolina, the last time we got a stimulus check, and they got a pretty decent mall, and the mall was slam packed. People was carrying bags of stuff out. I was like, man, you can't make this up. Rather than getting out of debt, rather than putting themselves ahead, consumerism, materialism, I get it. So we look at, let's keep going. Wealth inequality. The process transfers wealth from those who receive money late to those who receive it early, exacerbating inequality. Okay. It gave us an example during COVID-19 when stimulus checks were sent. Banks and large companies received liquidity and invested in assets before prices surge. They're going to park their money so they can avoid taxation. But by the time you get your money as a W-2 employee, you're going to give it right back to the system and then get taxed again on it. This makes perfect sense. Let's see. 8 set of parts that I had this conversation with my brother the other day makes me think, what were our forefathers doing many generations passed and nothing to pass on for a head start, land precious. Man, woo! You got to think about it, man. I don't want to, by any means, on any formal or government record, want to go down as wealthy or rich, because I want to be able, through a trust, hand belongings or assets down, and then my grandchildren automatically assume that, and it's just like jackpot. But we're not taught that. And here's the thing, man. I don't know what some of the men before us was caught up on. I'll make an analysis. Man, there were a lot of men that were spending money on things of no value. One of them would be furniture with the clear leather covering on it that nobody could ever sit on unless they was a VIP guest in your house. But you had to clean this stuff. You got to think, man, the older generation was told that there was value in that stuff. Man, how many men have grandparents or great grandparents that's got fine china cabinets where we look at it today, they bought these QVC silver sets that's maybe 20-30% silver. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get, if it's 20 to 30% silver, you're not going to get 20 to 30% value of spot, because you're going to have to pay the refineries. So you're losing out. It's like there wasn't, after industrialization, when people moved from urban areas, rural areas, were working the land, they had a better understanding what assets were. They were actually trading. You had, people panning for gold and things like that, the gold rush. And then urbanization, it's like the system no longer taught things of value anymore. So people were financing, old generation, you're financing furniture for 5-10 years, never paying it off, buying furniture with the plastic. And it's like, man, when I think about this, let me give you my mindset. When it comes to shoes, a lot of young men are into shoes and, all of that. It's your prerogative. Whatever you spend your money on. But for me, if I'm going to have the option between buying a brand new pair of shoes, man, I'm going to choose the option to spend $100 and get me an ounce of silver. Them shoes, you're going to wear off the sole. They're going to go out of style. You're going to wear them out. It's a depreciating asset. If I don't need no shoes, man, I'd rather buy an ounce of silver. Hands down. When I was younger, didn't have that mindset. When I was younger in my 20s, all I knew due to programming was, man, let me go to Burlington's, let me go to the mall, let me get some clothes to go out to the club and be a plum fool. That's the difference. That's what wisdom will do. Man, let's see what we got. Ranger said, based on Mike Maloney's 7 stages of empire, what stage do you think we're in? Let's see. Once upon a time, a single ounce of AU could buy the entire Dow or now tailored customized suit. Let that sink in. So one thing that I've been looking at is they've been taking silver, and although the prices are high, what they're doing is comparing it to the cost of home ownership, and they're using that as a wager to determine, is this 2018? Is this 2011? Are we in that time frame? So let's look this up. We got Mike Maloney. Seven stages of empire. Man, that's why I like live, man, because you get some great feedback. Let's see. So I don't know if I'm spot on, but I'm getting mixture, gestation, expansion, age of conflict, universal empire, decay, and invasion. Man, let me look this up. And I'm gonna have to do some research on that one before I can answer with any kind of let's see, we okay. So this says sound money is one, two is public works, three is massive military. Okay, four is perpetual war, five is debasing of currency supply, six is loss of faith, currency crisis. Man, let's see. Public work. As the country develops economic and socially, its government begins to build out infrastructure, adding layer upon layer of public works. Massive military. As nation economic affluence grows, so does a government political influence and aspirations, and it increases expenditures to fund a massive military. I don't know how massive they're going to get it because recruiting efforts are down. They are down. And what happens is, being a military recruiter once myself, I know how they tailor the headlines to make it seem like it's not, but behind the scenes, it's down. Perpetual war, eventually it puts its military to use and expenditures explode. So that one would be a pretty safe. That one will be a pretty safe. Hey, brother Ranger, if you got them, because what I'm looking at is just some generic stuff on the website for the Mike Maloney 7 Stages of Empire. It looks like most of that he talks about in videos from what I've seen. Debasing of the currency supply. To fund the war, it steals the wealth of its people by debasing their coinage with base metals or by replacing their money with a currency that can be created in unlimited. So that one's, yeah, this is pretty interesting. I think debasing of the currency supply, has already taken place. Based upon what I'm reading of this, to fund a war, it steals the wealth of its people by debasing their coins. I think in points of history, we've had that happen. Loss of faith, the loss in purchasing power of the expanded currency supply is sensed by the population in financial markets, triggering loss of faith in the currency. Okay. Let's see. Loss of faith, debasing. Okay. I wanted to make sure I was spot on. Yep. So let's see what number 7. You said stage 1 and 7 are the real money. A country starts out with solid money. Okay. That's long gone. That's long gone. So number 1 out of the question, long gone. We've got number 7, a mass exodus out of the failing currency and into precious metals, other tangible assets take place. The currency collapses and gold, silver rise sharply. Prices, their finite supply is relentless, bid higher by the huge quantity of currency that was created. Man, that one right there. Just based upon what I've seen in brief reading just now, man, number 7 looks like it. What do you think? What do you think? I'm thinking currency crisis. Currency crisis. People that are paying attention to this know something's off. They know something's off. And for that reason, this one, mass exodus, people are like, man, something's going on. They may not be able to put their finger on it, but something's definitely going on, and we need to exodus out of this. Okay. Ranger says, I think we're between 6 and 7. I can agree with that. I can agree with that one. That one is solid enough too. The loss in purchasing power of the expanded currency supply is sensed by the population. I can get that. We might be in a phase timeline right then and there by populace and financial markets triggering a loss of faith in the currency. At the end of the day, if your faith is in the dollar, that's not going to prove well. But if you've got something that can survive global economic crisis, gold, silver, platinum, you're going to be able to barter as necessary. But even then, I want you to think about this now. Right now, the going rate for silver, it's at, I'm looking at this thing, it is at 85.70. Let me see, 85.85. Okay. out the door, going to cost you 96, 97 bucks. That's value pertaining to USD. But when if things get worse off and fiat currency, paper currency is not accepted, and you have to barter, I think you're going to get more in value, because there's going to be people out there that don't have nothing to barter with, because they put their faith in the USD, the US currency, and they're going to be in a bad position. Think about it. If a fraction of people that invest in AG switch to AU, almost none would notice. If a small number of people went from AU to AG, it rocks the market. That's how small it is. Okay. Yeah, man. Man, it's now or never. I think we're going to hit a point within the next year. It's going to be now or never. You'd be lucky if, with some of the things that China is going to be doing, some of the things that are going to happen in industry, when I look at Tesla did very well, but it overshot its expectations. But when you think about what they're about to do in the EV market, a lot of people did not want to spend the money on these vehicles due to limited range. And the ones that did have high range, they were wanting you to sell a leg, sell a kidney. And I think what China is going to do is rev up that market again, rev up, that beast again. And people are going to be like, well, contrary to maintenance, like high maintenance costs on vehicles, these luxury vehicles that is, made out of paper mache, exorbitant prices, gas prices, luxury vehicles take 93 octane. Okay. These EVs that require all the silver, there's going to be a demand. And if people can get 600, 700, miles of range, you're getting more range than you currently get in your gas vehicles. I think that will change the trucking industry altogether, because that is something that they have been fighting. They've been trying to push, long range in trucking, but if it's not a certain range or more, it's not beneficial. It's not effective. It's not efficient enough. So yeah, within the next year, it's now or never. If you don't get in, these $96, $97 to get it shipped to your door, may never see that again. Let's see. We got, in my state, we're encouraged to pay taxes with metal. Only a fool. That's a whole nother conversation. Look at my eyes. That's a whole nother conversation. When you're doing this, luckily, I don't fall into that category. But no, it's like you're already getting taxed, and then you're trying to put your currency in actual money, and then they're like, we're gonna get an additional tax. Man, I got to talk about taxation when you are selling precious metals, because they're gonna try to get you. Uncle Sugar is gonna try to put his hands in your pocket. Uncle Sugar gonna try to put his hands in your wallet. So you definitely, Ranger said, in the Midwest. Yeah. Yeah. Some of that, like, at that point, you might as well add whatever your tax percentage is on top of what the price is to your door. But, let's see. Let's see what we got here. The fall of Weimar to now. Hey, Ranger, man, that seems like one that I can come back and do a follow-up on, the fall of Weimar. So let me check that out. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Hey, it's now or never, guys. You might want to get in, do your research, make wise decisions, because we may never see silver prices where they are. Shalom, shalom. Stay blessed. Stay encouraged.